friends, welcome back to the Marketing Nomad YouTube channel. Today we are going to be doing a review of a tarot deck, and that is Tarot of the Divine. I also bought the accompanying book with this, which is called Beneath the Moon. All right, this tarot deck is by Yoshi Yoshitani. All right, and it is a very beautiful deck. I've been using this for a couple of months now, and I have so many thoughts about this. This is actually one of my personal favorite decks as well, and I actually can't wait to show you how beautiful this deck is and why this deck has really stood out for me. So this is going to be more of a review of the deck because I've been using it for quite some time, but I am also going to be doing a walkthrough of all the cards that are in the deck just for you as well. All right, so this is how the deck looks. All right, let me actually give you a good focus. Yep, this is actually how the deck looks. Don't worry, I'm going to show you on my table as well. And this is the back. All right, beautiful. This particular deck, and I'm just reading it off the box, is inspired by deities, folklore, and fairy tales from around the world, and that's what makes this so beautiful. I can't wait to get into this. There is actually an accompanying guidebook along with the deck, but I chose to buy the other accompanying book, the one that has more details about the mythology and the folklores that are mentioned in these cards. So I'm going to be walking you through both of these. So let's shift the focus to my table so that I can show you the deck, and I can't wait. Let's do this. Alrighty, let's get started with Tarot of the Divine. This is by publisher Clarkson Potter. They are an imprint of Penguin Random House. Now, as you can see, my box has had quite a bit of wear and tear. I was actually just checking when I bought this deck, and that was in Feb of last year. So it's actually been a little bit over a year. I know that I mentioned it in the beginning of this video that's been a couple of months, but no, it's actually been a little over a year, and I've used this deck pretty extensively in the year that I have had it, and I can't wait to show you more about this deck in just a little bit. But before that, let's kind of get into the book that was sold separately, but it is an accompaniment to the Tarot of the Divine deck. Now this one, I'm so glad I invested in this book because I personally don't feel that the guidebook is enough to connect with the deck per se. And I found that with the guidebook, there are so many deeper meanings and intuitive ease that comes through when you read this particular storybook that is sold separately. So I would highly recommend buying this. Like I said, it's sold separately. It doesn't come with the deck. All right, highly recommend it. All right, now let's get into the actual deck. Let's talk more. As you can see, that is the guidebook that comes along with it. It's pretty small, and every card has a very small description. As you can see right below the card, there is the description. I guess I would say the one thing that I do like about this guidebook is that it is colorful. I wouldn't say it is detailed, but it gives you a little bit of information, at least the basics of what you need to connect to the deck. But I personally was not very impressed with the guidebook per se. I actually fell in love with the storybook, and I felt that it helped me a lot with respect to my readings. So this is how the back of the deck looks like. It is a matte finish. As you can see, it doesn't reflect much light, and the artwork in particular can be seen with various lighting. It is very smooth to touch. There's a bit of slight resistance, like a little bit of, I guess you would call it matte finish. And when you shuffle, it actually isn't slippery. It's pretty, there's a little bit of friction that's created with the matte on the top, right? And that's the card. The thickness is pretty good for a mass market deck, and it holds its shape well. As you can see, it does bend a bit after a while, though I think you can make out that mine has suffered quite a bit of wear and tear, but so far the colors still hold good. It's been a year, so the colors still hold good, and I personally am still enjoying this deck. All right, A few more details about it. This is directly inspired by myths, folk tales, fairy tales, as Yoshi Yoshitani says in her book as well. And these are from cultures worldwide, so it is a very, very inclusive deck. It does add a layer of storytelling to the traditional tarot meanings. It does follow the RWS structure, but so the core meanings by itself align, but the interpretations that you get, especially if you have bought the storybook that goes along with it, yeah, it is so much more deeper. It is so much more intense, because I think that first off, the artwork, as you can see, is so intricate. There are so many elements that you can play with, and it just captures your attention. And for me, in terms of intuitive ease, it took me a little bit of time to remember the story that comes alongside the card. But once I started becoming familiar with the stories, it became a lot easier for me to just kind of go into my own deep dive, my own perspective of the messages that come through it. I, in particular, love that the cards are so vibrant. I mean, just look at it. It's just shining off, and it just absolutely captures one's attention. The artwork by itself, I mean, it is just beautiful. There's no other word that I can give for it. And for me, I think that the myth-based approach really enhances, because for me, one, you can take a look at the tarot meaning by itself and then get your own intuitive hits with that, but you can also tap into the narrative themes that are associated with it, like the folk tales and the fairy tales. And for me, I think that not only does the fairy tale align very well with the tarot meaning, so it doesn't feel like you're stretching too much or it's too forceful for you to interpret the meanings. It actually flows very, very beautifully. Now, a little bit about the artistic style, very bold, fluid, as you can see. I mean, it looks like the pictures are literally moving. It is a storybook that has come to life. Very, very dreamy artwork over there. And for me, even the darker cards, to be honest with you, like, for example, the Three of Swords, they actually feel more poetic than ominous or heartbreaking. Actually, it gives a very, very beautiful spin, even if the cards might not be what you're looking for at that point in time. So I feel like, especially for those cards, it does help you touch upon those topics in a way that is gentle for you, without sacrificing the depth and the meaning behind those cards. Now, with respect to the deck, when I first started understanding that, okay, well, each card has a story of its own, I was a bit worried that maybe it will be kind of distorted to use it together, because when I do my spreads, especially for myself or a deeper reading or for my clients, what happens is usually it starts out with 3 and then they get clarified by 3 more. So at a time, I'm using 6 of these cards. And so when I started reading the storybook that goes along with the deck, that's sold separately, I just want to keep saying that because I didn't know, and I was reminded on one of the tarot blog that I usually kind of refer to anyway. So I thought that it would be difficult for me to kind of bring it all together because each of them have their own stories, but no, actually it's actually very, very cohesive. I think it's because the art style just flows into one another, and each card does not stand out very distinctly. They actually blend very well together, and it helps me kind of travel from one card to another and then back again, and then kind of mixing the intuitive messages that I'm getting, not just from the tarot readings, but also from the stories that comes to my mind at that point in time when I am reading the cards. So that way, I think that this deck is pretty good for storytelling based readings, and it really helps you weave together the myths, the tarot meanings, as well as your own personal experiences, because sometimes you can look at the image and it does relate in some way to you. You can look at specific elements and then see how that can relate to you as well. For me, if you are a beginner, I would say getting the storybook is important because the guidebook by itself doesn't provide that much of a guidance per se. Even if you are aware of the RWS structure, I would say the storybook is really important. For advanced readers, I will say that the storybook is a brilliant investment. It just helps you tap into so many different layers. There are so many different ways that you can read the same card. And I, in particular, have enjoyed. I mean, if you see the wear and tear of the the deck, I think that you can make out that I have used this so much. And the reason why I've used this so much is because every single time it gives me a different layer, it gives me a different message. And I, in particular, have enjoyed tapping into that. So overall, the energy of the card, it's good for storytelling, good for introspection. You can use it for dream interpretation as well, subconscious insights as well. I think that the mythological connections kind of bring a sense of spiritual depth as well to your readings. Now, in terms of, the deeper aspects of it, like for example, if you're a beginner and you're using the cards, I would say start by opening one card first at a time, and then slowly add more cards to your reading. That way you won't feel overwhelmed. But overall, I think that this is a great deck, whether you want to use it for yourself, you want to use it for your clients as well. If you are a tarot reader, I would recommend, because I think that the insights this particular deck has, especially with the stories across the world, I mean, you are tapping not just into one bout of knowledge, I guess. You're tapping into, or I guess I should say, you are tapping into generations of knowledge in these cards, and I particularly have really, really enjoyed that. In terms of shuffling experience, as you can see, it's pretty smooth, pretty easy. The matte and the kind of the protrusions on top of the deck make sure that the cards don't stick to one another. It's very, very smooth, very, very easy. And hold on, I'm just going to get into how you can use this particular deck. I'll just give you one particular way that has worked for me. And there it is. So in this example, I've taken out the Lovers card. Now, in this particular deck, the Lovers, when you take a look at the guidebook, it does give you a short interpretation of it. Hold on, let me actually open it out. So it says, The Beauty and the Beast, China, Danish fairy tale. The Lover's card represents romance, opposites attracting, the duality and balance of carnality, physicality, and fire versus spirituality, emotions, and water. The pair emphasize the importance of communication and herald an important crossroads. Upright, love, harmony, trust, and a leap of faith. Choice, reversed, unreliability, separation, second-guessing values, and conflict. So with this itself, there are a few messages that come through. Yes, absolutely. But I think this is just my personal preference is I take the guidebook. I mean, now I'm pretty well versed with the guidebook, but what you can do is take the guidebook. One pet peeve I have with the storybook, I guess I would say, not the guidebook, the storybook, is I really wish that they had done it in the order of the cards rather than, I don't know, I think they might have done it alphabetically, but I would have preferred it like, okay, the 0th card is the Fool, so the Fool would be the first story that comes out. That way it just helps you, because when I first started out, I had absolutely no idea what the pictures meant, and to look for them in the storybook holding the guidebook as a reference, that was a bit messy. So that was my only pet peeve. But yeah, so this is how it looks. They usually have a full page of the picture and then the story that goes along with it. You take some time, read the story, and here are a few things that you can ask yourself, when you are going through the card. This is really, really good for personal inspection. So the first question that you can ask yourself is, all right, well, what is the core story or core lesson of this myth or folk tale? How does it relate to my situation? You can take a pen and a paper, or you can take your journal and start writing. I would recommend during the initial stages to actually take some time to journal it, because I think that there's just a lot of information that comes out right at once. And even if you are an advanced reader and you are kind of going for more personal inspection, with respect to these cards, yeah, I would say it works to write it all down, because it's just too much of information, and there's so many different elements that will jump at you, and it just helps to write it down, or at least say it out loud, and then you can record it in some way. Okay, so that's the first question that you can ask yourself, like, how does it relate to my current situation? Why has this particular card come out? What is the story trying to reflect to me right now at this point in time? The second question that you can ask yourself is, well, what obstacles or challenges existed in this tale? How do they mirror my own personal struggles? How was it overcome in the story? How can I use that as an inspiration for my situation? Was there a transformation in perhaps the way that they thought, the way that they felt, the way that they took actions, breaking of behavioral patterns? How can I relate that to myself and my situation? The third question that you can ask yourself is, what emotions do these cards imagery evoke in me? Why? How can this particular card help me understand my emotions better? What inspiration can I take from this story with respect to the emotions that are evoking inside me at this point in time, or the thoughts that are coming to my attention at this point in time? The fourth thing that you can ask yourself is, well, what transformation or revelation is part of this story? And how can I use that understanding, the understanding of the situation, the moral of the story, or even the transformation that's happened in any of the characters? It doesn't have to be the main character of the story, but it could be any other character as well of the situation in the myth or in the folktale, to help me in mine. And so as you sit down with these characters, as you sit down with the stories, you are going to find that in some shape or form, it does relate to you. I mean, there are no coincidences, right? There's a reason why it did come to you at that point in time. So I find that this journaling practice really helps if you want to take a deep dive into maybe a situation that you're going through. And this just helps you give or get, I guess I would say, a more different narrative, and a narrative that is more fitted to storytelling. All right, that brings me to the end of this video. I really hope that this video helped you in some way. If it did, give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell. Here are a couple of things that you can check out as well. Alrighty, I'll catch you in my next one. Bye bye.